It's loading, so it'll just be another second. Okay, so it's activated now. So Dan, do you want to open? This is our co-chair, Daniel Maeda.
Hey folks, Dan Maeda, the co-chair of the commission, the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. Thank you so much for your attendance today. It's great to see that there's a lot of interest in our work. We are in the final stretches of the process after having conducted a number of public hearings, gathered a lot of community input into their communities of interest. We had received some maps of communities of interest, and now we are receiving maps from the public and various groups. We've been in the process of analyzing those, and next week we'll do that much more in earnest. So this is an opportunity for you all, if you are interested in doing so, to access our software, our free software, and draw maps. I have to say it's a very challenging process to try to come up with a full 5-district set of maps, but you're also free to submit single district maps or communities of interest maps for our consideration as well. But our commission is excited to receive that additional public input. Once we select a few map options that we will present to the public, we will have public hearings in November, probably more than a couple of public hearings in November, which we're trying to schedule right now. And we will be asking for public input into the map options that we have. We'll further refine those, and then by December 15th, we will have to actually choose a final map for adoption. So again, thank you for your attendance today. You're in good hands with our Executive Director, Gayla, who will walk you through timeline, process, whatever other questions you may have. I'm going to not be able to stay long. I have other commitments, but I did want to have a chance to greet you all and to thank you for your interest and participation in this process.
So I'm Gayla Kraetsch Hartsough. I have one of the hardest names in Southern California, so you can just call me Gayla. Think Gayla like happy festivities. I did want to do this as a workshop. I believe I have allowed all of you to speak. If you want to turn on your cameras, you're welcome to. I have slides, and what I'd like to do is just sort of walk you through where we're at and cover in more detail what Co-Chair Maeda just went over in terms of the timeline. Do you all know how to mute and unmute easily? A little trick I have found is if you just hit the space bar, you can unmute temporarily and ask your question. Then you release the space bar and we can continue. So with that, let's get started. I do see there are a couple of questions in chat, but I think I've covered all of those. So let's go to the slideshow. And I'm going to put you on gallery view so I can see you all. So the first thing is, this is the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. Their responsibility, as you may know, is to draw the 5 supervisorial district lines. I want you to know that I'm going to be talking about the process today. I cannot take any information from you of where you want to draw the lines. That input you have to bring before the full commission when they have a quorum at one of their meetings in October, the public hearings in November. And it's only when they have 9 or more commissioners that they can receive that information. You also have the ability to submit public comments, and the public comments are tied to our agenda items. And I'm going to show you later where to find this information on our website, so you know exactly where to submit public comments. But this is where that link is, and this is the link to our website in general. And I'll share that information with you in more detail when we get to the website. The first thing I wanted to cover was the timeline. And as you may know, we had to wait patiently until the census data was completed in August. We then had to wait to receive the official adjusted census data for California and Los Angeles County specifically. And that adjustment was for the incarcerated population, which we did not get until late September. We were able then to launch the free mapping software with this current data set. That's the official public law data set for drawing the maps on October 7th. The last 2 weeks, the commission has begun reviewing submitted maps. I'm going to show you where you can find the maps that have been submitted to date. Next week is a big deal for the commission. They're going to be meeting on October 26th, 27th, and 28th, starting at 6:30. And at that point, they've got to delve deeper into the maps that have been submitted. They really have to think about what are the best map options they want to start with. And once those have been developed, ideally no later than October 28th, they will be posted for 7 days. And then the month of November into early December will be a series of public hearings. By public law, there has to be at least 2 public hearings 30 days apart. We'll probably do more like 4 or 5 public hearings, and it will depend upon the demand and the interest. Right now, we're scheduling every Wednesday evening. Probably it'll start at 6:30. You'll have to watch the bulletins to see the exact start time if they want to start even earlier. And, you know, this is important because it's going to be an iterative process. They may start out with, let's say, 3 or 4 map options, and then they may get additional input and then have modifications to those maps going forward based on the public input. The other critical date is December 15th, and that's when all maps are due. And that, you know, is a absolute deadline. So before I go on, are there any questions about just the general timeline of what we're up against these next coming weeks? Do you all know how to raise your hand with the little icon at the bottom, or just unmute because it's not a big group? Okay, so let me just suggest to you, if you are with any organizations that want to submit a map, you will accept the map throughout the coming weeks. It would be more opportune for you to get it in sooner so that the commissioners can spend more time deliberating on each map submitted, particularly next week. But that doesn't mean if you have maps and you want to submit them in November, they would still continue to be considered. So this is where you can find the maps on the website. And I'm going to walk you through which maps we've gotten so far. Would you like to see those now, or should I go through the whole slideshow? Linda, you're unmuted. Does that mean you want to talk?
No, I just left it unmuted. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't I go through the slides and I'll show you where everything is on the website. Well, let's look at the website. What do you think? And of course, hold on. Get it on. So this is where our overall website is. And, you know, if you know, on the front, we always have a banner running in terms of when our next meeting will be. You can click here to learn about meetings, how to submit public comments at meetings, each of these areas, learning about the public hearings in November, and then how to use the software. About us, you can read about how the commissioners were selected. You can look at their bios, our bylaws, and our staff bios are there as well. Information on meetings, if you go to the virtual meeting link and scroll down, you'll see a table that lists our upcoming meetings. It attaches all the information in terms of documents that are being presented or considered. And it goes all the way back in terms of the official formation in January. There's a separate link for the formation. You'll see the 2020 meetings are there. Community outreach. A lot of the time this summer was spent doing public hearings. And we have been compiling that information. We completed 12 public hearings. We were required by law to do 7. 5 were to be physically in each of the 5 supervisorial districts, which we did do through hybrid. And if you go down here, you will be able to click on here and you'll open up an Excel spreadsheet that provides all of the input received to date. You can sort it by geographic area, by zip code, by all sorts of factors there. The topic that we were on when I was talking about making a district map was right here. And you'll see there's background information that you might want to look at maps. This is where you go to open an account for the mapping software. And you would actually do like you do with any cloud-based free software. You create a username, you create a password, and then you can work with it. We have lots of training tapes on how to do, and we've been running seminars and workshops in English and Spanish for those. You can add more data layers, but this is the hub that I was talking about. And if you look at the hub, you're going to see the maps are grouped in different ways. These are the maps that have been submitted since October 7th with the official software and the official data sets. If you go on down, you'll see some preliminary maps we received prior to October 7th. Some are hand-drawn. Some were, developed using the 2020 census data that had not been adjusted for the incarcerated population. And then if you go further down, you'll see we got a lot of maps about communities of interest. And our public hearings, the 12 we had over the summer, were really all focused on what are communities of interest, what communities want to stay together. At the bottom here, you're going to see there's options A, B, and C. And I'm going to talk next in the slideshow about what those models are and how the commission developed them and how they're going to use them. But that's where those maps will be. And as we get more maps in, they will be added here as official maps for consideration. There's one other link here on the website if you are interested. And it's really if you want to know more information. If you want to know more, you have legal resources, Voting Rights Act, frequently asked questions, a glossary. So any questions on that before I continue? And we've had some more people. I see a hand raised. Okay, Brianna, what's your question?
Hi there. I just had a question about the communities of interest.
Yeah.
Can you define exactly what that is? Is it just folks that are submitting communities that think should be grouped together, or is it a little bit more than that?
That's it, sort of in a basic bottom line. The way the California CRC had described it was people were to describe what would be the cultural, social, and economic reasons why a community should be kept together. Because there's great interest not to split communities that feel they really, feel they should be a community of interest. So they were called COIs, and we received a lot of input. And I'm going to share with you some input we got just on maps, so you can just sort of see how there was some uniformity in the input we got from some groups, and there were some differences. So an example would be one of the questions people were asked was, who else would you like to be aligned with? Or who don't you want to be with? And those were pretty insightful. Sometimes people gave input based on socioeconomic factors, sometimes based on language, sometimes based on culture, sometimes based on the geography, the mountain ranges, the highways. There were all sorts of factors that we heard testimony on. So I'll go back to the slideshow now. I'm going to give you some examples of what we did then in October as a commission. And by the way, all of our meetings are recorded and posted where it says meetings. We post the YouTube recording, and they're on our YouTube channel as well. So what we did in October for the last 2 weeks is the commissioners were asked, we broke them into 5 teams. We assigned them to different geographic regions to really focus on. We had each team look at least each sort of geographic zone. We asked that at least two teams look at it to see where there was some commonality. But they went through the hundreds of comments we got, written, oral, you'll see them on the Excel spreadsheet. They had sat through weeks of public testimony, and they came back with what we called hypotheses. There was, if you look at this model, they got a lot of input, for example, from Lancaster, Palmdale saying, well, we want to be together. But there was this little community of Little Rock, Pear Blossom who sort of said, well, we're our own group. And yet they're part of the larger Antelope Valley. Santa Clarita had also, said, please keep us together. There were comments from the San Fernando Valley to keep them together, the Tri-Cities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena talked about their economic shared interests. You've got the San Gabriel Valley. Then you have a lot more details. We go here. Got a lot of input from the Las Virgenes area. Not too much from the seaside communities. We got input. Long Beach wanted to stay together. So these, you'll see if you go to our hub, you can blow these maps up and look at them in a bigger way. But this was the first pass at what seemed to be communities that sort of said, please try to keep us together. So when the commissioners then shared these hypotheses and our demographer sort of drew, this seemed to be sort of the prevailing thoughts. There were additional COI hypotheses that were different. So we developed a couple more models. So think about this as sort of like you're looking at a model house to buy, and they all have the same square footage, and they may have slightly different configuration of where you put the kitchen, the bedrooms, and that kind of thing that might fit that family style best. So none of these are definitive. They were just a way for us to visually show what communities were saying. So in Model B, there was a lot of testimony about keep the Antelope Valley together. So that's why that was drawn that way. There was a lot of time spent in this middle area in terms of ways to fine-tune that a little bit differently. And here you'll see, for example, Avalon is attached to Long Beach. Here you'll see it's attached to San Pedro. By law, everything has to be contiguous unless it's an island, and then it has to be joined based on the ferry. So basically, Catalina Avalon has ferry services to San Pedro and Long Beach. So those are its two options. And then there was yet a third one developed. And this one, you'll see, really began to look at, well, could the San Fernando Valley be slightly different if we were to carve out, because a lot of testimony came from the Latino community to keep this area together. There was testimony about the northern San Gabriel Valley, that it was a little bit different along the foothill areas. So again, it's just another take, nothing definitive, but we needed to sort of say, here's a visualization, and the public can weigh in and sort of say, yeah, we sort of are more like Model A, Model C. Here's a further refinement. Hi, Linda. Ask your question. Can you unmute, or was it an accident? I saw your hand go up.
Sorry. No, that's right.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm in the 4th district, and it covers a portion of San Pedro, but according to all of the maps, which have San Pedro in the first map going up a ways, I guess, I'm just a little bit confused how it would flesh out when the 4th district is determined. If it would, I can't quite tell whether it would keep the part of San Pedro that we have now, or it would be totally separate because the streets aren't shown. Yeah.
Oh, you can get the details down to the street level when you go to the hub and open up the more details of the maps. The commission has not drawn those maps. What happened with San Pedro, which is why you'll see Santa Monica also separated, there was public testimony where some people said San Pedro's not like Long Beach. And so it's just sort of drawn separately. Some, it could go to the southwest, along the beach. It could go north, or it could go more south, sort of, what is that, northeast. But it was identified as a unique community. That's all these maps are. You know, obviously the next challenge is how do you reach 2 million people, which I think your question is.
Sort of, yeah, but my concern is we want to keep part of San Pedro that is there right now, because it's part of our organization to begin with, but also, you know, it is along the water. So as is Long Beach. So there are different connections, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd be happy, you know, to submit a comment that you would like to keep San Pedro with the Long Beach and the seaside communities, for example. We did not get a lot of input from San Pedro. So
no, I know. Yeah, imagine not. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not with Long Beach. I'm not with Long Beach. I'm with the Palos Verdes area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is background information. Okay. So just so you know, what are the requirements that our commissioners have to do? You know, the big question now is how do you take 10 million people and divide it by 5? They have to be approximately equal. There's some deviation that cannot exceed a total of 10%. It has to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. It has to be geographically contiguous. And also the COIs, these communities of interest, are important to keep not only the geographic integrity, but the other aspects of communities of interest together. And then, you know, basically as much as possible, you have geographic compactness. And I can show you some pictures of that if you want to see what we mean by that. But essentially, you can't have like one big group out here and then a narrow strip and then another big group out here. And you've intentionally left out other groups that should have been geographically joined. So these are by law, the criteria that have to be followed. Now, where our commissioners are going to be next week is thinking about how do we take all this input from the community and begin to build examples of what Supervisorial District 4 could look like, or, you know, any of the 5. And so that's going to be the next challenge. You know, and they've not begun to draw those lines. That's what all of next week will be about. Does that sort of answer your question, Linda? I mean, if you have an opinion, you should come and speak before the commission. You might want to look at maps that have been submitted that might place San Pedro where you would like it to be, and you might indicate support for that model, or, you know, develop just a community of interest map. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot more information. This is all the information about how you can, you know, sign up. We have been virtual in October. We probably will be a combination of virtual and hybrid in November. If we have in person, it'll be at the Patriotic Hall, if you know where that is, just south of downtown LA. All of that information will be posted on our website. You can always attend virtually. You can call by phone. We broadcast our meetings on YouTube Live and keep them posted. And then obviously you can submit public comments. Here are 14 commissioners, and I'm happy to talk to you about how they were selected and our staff. But I thought I might just sort of show, these are examples about a good practice of being contiguous and not a good practice. You can see there's a gap. This is an example where it's not as compact, where you have this very thin piece of population connecting to larger ones. Or there looks like here they've sort of scattered it around. This would be a more ideal compact. I'll do this one last slide, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions. We do have on our website, and I should have shown you, it's under public outreach. We have toolkits, we have fact sheets in the 12 languages that are the threshold languages in Los Angeles County. We have a PowerPoint presentation that goes over a lot more details about the requirements in the 12 languages. Obviously, we're in Facebook, Twitter, and all of that. So let me just open it up to you all to answer your questions. quiet group.
Can you show us an example? This is Carrie. Can you show us an example of a map, of a redrawn map?
Sure, be happy to. These are submitted maps. They are on the website. So again, if you go to making a redistricting map, you go to the hub. And these, by the way, are maps submitted by the public. This software is free. We have 8 maps submitted so far. And so here, you'll see a map that, oh, by the way, when you do the software, you can have a choice in how you number the districts. So when you open this up, it may call what you think the supervisorial district 4 is something else. Don't worry about that. But here you'll see somebody drew the map with the Antelope Valley sort of coming over into this area, Santa Clarita with San Fernando Valley and Las Virgenes. Here seems to be the seaside community on down. Let's just go over here. Here's one that's a little bit different where they kept the North County together. We got comments from the public. They wanted the North County together, as well as comments about Santa Clarita and Antelope Valley, are separate COIs. And you'll see there's like this other little strip here of a different kind of a district. So, I can open up one of these and you can do the same yourself where you can explore. When they submit the map, they can add a little bit more of a description. It will take a little bit time for this to load because there's a lot of information presented. The larger you do it, you'll get more details. You can also ask to look at more details. I'm sorry. You can download if you want to do your own modifications. You can create a map. And let's go back to this view. And our demographer is going to be working with the, so like here, we had a question about San Pedro. This particular example, if you look at what's been submitted, has this southern area here going from Norwalk, Long Beach up through Rancho Palos Verdes and Torrance, and it goes all the way over to Malibu. So that's a map that was submitted. And you can go through and you can look at any of these other maps. Let's get back to the hub.
Is there an assumption that the population has been properly distributed when they submitted the map?
So you cannot submit a map unless it's
okay
within the standard deviation and
great.
Compactness. There are criteria built into the software that if you don't, like you have too much of a deviation in size, it will not allow you to submit it. And so it would force you to go back and say, you would know, well, this community, I have to find another 100,000 people.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, Christine.
Good morning, Gayla. My question is, when we're focusing on providing feedback at the public meetings coming up, should we focus on those options A, B, and C and look less at what individuals submitted at this point in the game?
I would really look at, the commissioners are moving from, this is the input we got from the COI, the model A, B, and C, and that's just background information, okay?
Right.
They're going to be looking now at the maps with the 5 supervisorial districts. So that I would encourage you to really focus on the maps. They're going to be thinking about, is this map consistent with what we understood to be a community of interest, or have they intentionally split one? They're going to be thinking about the citizen voting age population. They're going to be thinking about the total population. They're going to be thinking about the socioeconomic indicators and what they'd heard as they pick their options. Now, the nice thing about options is you can have a continuum. They should be a little bit different to stimulate discussion. And what you see going into the public hearings at the start will evolve. It can be a very interactive process. So for example, They may have 3 options. You think one is close and you really like it in this aspect, but this other map you prefer for some other reason. Or you may weigh in on one of the options and just sort of say, you know, you put Whittier here, but I think it really belongs more with this other group. The other check and balance, I don't know if I have people here from LA City. The commission, if they can, you know, have been given guidance that it'd be nice to keep cities together and to keep unincorporated communities together. Within LA City, because it's over 2 million, it approaches 4 million, it will obviously have to be in at least 2 supervisorial districts. So they have taken what are called CSAs in LA City, which Public Works uses, which are larger communities, as the building blocks there. And a final check and balance, because they got a lot of public input from neighborhood councils. Don't split us up between supervisorial districts. And I think it was about 10 or 15% of them were split up in 2011. So that'll have to be a final check. We also are going to do racially polarized analysis of the options in the final map. Yeah, Christine.
Thank you so much.
So your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
I'm sorry, I don't usually use this function. Let me put my hand down. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions?
Oops.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, hi. You know, when we were going over the details about everything, one of the questions that came up is where your information came from regarding the financial situation in the various communities, because it's not in the census. I know that. So where is that in from the economics within each community? Where does that come from?
So that's from the American Community Survey, which
Okay.
is, you know, routinely collected. I think the latest one was 2019, I think. So
Okay.
that is what we're using for now.
Okay, thank you.
I can also show you. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it. That's it. That was my
There was
question.
another question, but it's going to show you where the data sets are, so you understand how extensive this is. But there, I'll take the question before I show you that. Was that from Myra? I thought I saw a flicker. Okay, I will show you where you can see the hub data. Sorry, hold on. It went down. When I closed it, it totally closed. Here we go. Okay, so back to our website. So see, making a district map. And here are the different data sets that are available. So we have the census data, and the Public Law 194 is adjusted for the incarcerated population. There are various track shapefiles and all of that. We would prefer you use the county software, because that is the software that the commissioners will be using. But if you have demographers or experts in this area, they can download the data and use it on their own software and submit maps. But you'll see we have different reference layers: the assembly districts, Senate districts, cities and communities, congressional districts, city and LA council districts. The list goes down. The citizen voting age population, by tracts, by block groups, socioeconomic, educational attainment. That's also from the American Community Survey. Linguistic isolation, poverty, all from the American Community Survey. And then we have our 3 models. Again, they're just models. They're not, anything that has been adopted as an official or final. They're just input. And then we have additional files, different ethnic categories. We're going with the Department of Justice ethnic categories because they total 100%. And then we've had the League of Women Voters had suggested we add some environmental, because we got public comment about concerns of environmental justice issues, and as well as housing, affordable housing. So there's a lot of data that can be looked at. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. So one of the things that we were looking at on the census data was a comparison of 2010 to 2020, which we can get on the US Census. On the ACS 2019, do you have any comparison of that to a prior time?
American Community Survey.
Yeah.
We've not done that analysis. Obviously, data are available. One could do that. We also, for example, we just had a presentation last night on the racially polarized analysis that Dr. Jonathan Katz out of Caltech had done with Bruce Edelson, who's a Redistricting Voting Rights Act attorney that we've retained. And they went, and for example, and they looked at the supervisorial races since 2012 through 2020. And one of the things they said is, LA is so dynamic and changes so much that you sort of have to look at what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, even more so for it to reflect the current situation. So no, we've not done that kind of trend analysis. Did you find anything?
Where is that data available? Like, I think that the survey is every 5 years or something, isn't it?
Actually, I'd have to look it up. The American Community Survey, actually, I think they do sort of monthly questions out in the community, but they compile it. I thought it was annual, but you can go on their website and you'll see the American Community Survey.
Do you happen to know what that website is?
U.S. Census Bureau.
Oh, U.S. Census, yeah.
Yeah, just go to U.S. Census Bureau, type in American Community Survey.
American Community Survey. Okay, great.
And then you click on it. You want California, you want Los Angeles County.
Right. Okay, thank you.
For all the years that they've done them.
Okay.
Yeah. So other questions? I'd like to know, is this helpful to have this kind of a conversation? Because I know sometimes when you go to meetings, it's very stiff and formal.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it is.
Hi, Carrie. Is your hand still up or?
Oh, sorry. No. Anyway, yes, I find this very useful. Thank you.
Okay. I noticed some familiar names on the screen.
Yeah, I would like to thank you as well. We were with our little committee. I'm from the League of Women Voters here in Palos Verdes, and we've been working together on this. And so finding where the information comes from has been a challenge for me anyway. So okay. Thank you. It's there if you know where to look, but knowing where to look is the key. Yeah.
Yeah. We try to make the tabs pretty user-friendly across the top of the homepage, and then you'll see there's a lot of information if you want to build a map. I didn't show you that page. They're training videos and all of that. So, I do want to encourage you, if you're working with communities or organizations that are planning to submit a supervisorial map, to try to get it in, if not next week, earlier in the process, so it can be carefully considered. If you submit it December 5th, we'll look at it, but at that point, the public hearings, for example, should be over, and they're going to be at the point of picking their final maps. So I think you can appreciate the timeline. Other questions? We don't have to fill the full hour. I can sit here until 11 in case anybody tunes in, but I want to make sure you feel up to date. So I got a thumbs up from Lester. Heidi, I'm glad it was helpful. Oh, here's how is the Angeles Forest, Santa Fe Dam, or other large public spaces considered? So those are, I should go through a couple of these questions here. So they would be considered an RDU. Some of these, I was surprised when we were looking at one with the Angeles National Forest. It has actually some population. And that would be, for example, an area to consider. Should that be part of the Antelope Valley? Should it be part of the San Gabriel Valley? You know, how might it be attached to the larger populated areas? The same would be for any of those open space areas. They would be attached to, you know, like the Santa Monica Mountains. We got a lot of input from Malibu, Topanga Canyon, Las Virgenes about the watershed, and that the Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy should be kept together. Question, how much testimony did you receive from the Watts community regarding the redistricting of the community? You know what, I'll open that up. We got quite a bit actually from Watts. Somebody got a message, people aren't being allowed to get in. I don't know why that would be. There should be no reason why they weren't allowed in. Let me proceed and show you where you can find out how many people from Watts or any other community are allowed in. I mean, gave public testimony. I'm sort of trying to multitask why the folks aren't being admitted. So if you go here to the public hearings under community outreach, you click on there and you scroll down. What you'll see here is sort of a scattergram of where we got input. You can sort of see where we had public testimony from areas of 10 or more people. If you click on this, what will open is an Excel spreadsheet, which will take a second, and I may need to close my share and reopen it. Can you all see the screen with the Excel spreadsheet? Let me stop the share and reshare. So this is the Excel spreadsheet. So you can go here. Make sure I can do this. And you can look across here and you can say, I want to see what was the community of interest that submitted the comment and the community name. And I'm having too many windows here to enable it up now. But you can just click on here and it'll show you all the communities that provided input. So let's go down. This one isn't sorted by community name. If it's blue, it was input about LA County from the California CRC. We also had Spanish and English translations in here. But if you keep going down, you'll see where the input was: Northeast, Southeast LA, a lot of input. It's not allowing me to. I have too many screens open, I think. Let's see if they'll allow me to do it now. It's not allowing me to do it on the screen, and I apologize. But you'll see there was considerable input from Watts, particularly in terms of the various communities to be joined with. We also have a separate tab that presents all the English and the Spanish testimony. Separately, all the testimony from California. We also build a little spreadsheet where you can look at all of the cities, the LA city neighborhoods, and unincorporated areas by existing supervisorial districts. And if you want to know more about Duarte, you can click on it and it will take you to the Wikipedia page that will tell you more about it. Can you see where it went to the Wikipedia? I can't see you, so I don't know. But anyhow, that's where you'd find that information. Did that answer your question? And I don't know why people can't get in. That question was from Karen. Looks like it's from Karen or Kathy. No, Karen. Okay. Any other questions? I see two in the, how are the incarcerated being registered to vote and identified to be from their jurisdiction? That's from Christian Tugueras. I don't know. I don't know what that next outreach process. We're just focused on the redistricting. Any other questions? Oh, somebody logged in manually. The link didn't work. Okay. Someone said they had to click here to join. That would be a normal thing that you would do to click on. So hopefully the people who wanted to be here got here. SGVO, the San Gabriel Valley COG. Brianne, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to share for people who were having trouble getting in, there were two links provided. One was the full Zoom link, and that didn't seem to work. It created an error page. And so I think the person sharing that you had to click here, that was another link that was hyperlinked with the click here button. So if anyone's trying to get in, if they're talking to someone who can hear us, then that's how I got in, if that's the issue that other folks are having.
Okay. And if you know people who couldn't get in, this is being recorded. We'll have it on our YouTube page. Carmen Taylor Jones, you have a question? I see the hand raised on the screen. Carmen, did you have a question? Okay, anyone else? Well, if there aren't any more questions, maybe we should just wrap this up now. Last chance. I'm just making sure I don't see anyone else. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for turning out, and let me just reiterate the timeline again. The commission will be looking at maps submitted, and on Tuesday, this is not only going to be the map submitted by the public, but also maps commissioners have been working on. They will be discussing those on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to hone in on presenting options for receiving public reaction during public hearings that will occur during the month of November over a 30-day period. And then they'll take that input and they will finalize their map by December 15th. The public hearings are going to be an iterative process. So the map options you see in early November should evolve based on your public input and others' public input in terms of map features you like or don't like, will all be considered. There is a link. So when you want to make a comment, if you don't want to come in person to make a public comment, just go to our meetings. You can submit a written comment on any agenda item. And we will be listing on those agendas the different maps that are being discussed. So you can attach your comment to a specific map to indicate if you like it, you don't like it, what you do like about it, what you don't like about it. I will be posting this recorded event on our YouTube, and we'll also post it under this meeting workshop on our website. Somebody said they cannot access audio. Carmen. There you go. Does that work, Carmen? Can you talk now? Does that work?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Anyone
no
else
problem.
having trouble accessing their audio?
So I actually
question?
did actually write the question in question and answers, but I have a, so I am on today, I'm with Black Women for Wellness, and we are having, conversations. I mean, I probably have attended not less than 50 hearings, workshops, trainings, all type of different conversations about redistricting. And our conversations have been the same for the African American community. Of course, we know that from the census, we were hard pressed. Our numbers seemed as though they were shrinking, which actually makes this question even more important. So when we look at the Senate district maps, what we are seeing now is, African Americans are largely located in the 30 and 35th Senate districts. And we have submitted, created maps, worked on those maps for months and submitted them through the Black Census and Redistricting Hub and also through People's Block. However, the plans A and Plan B, both of those totally disregard that. And the African American community per those proposed plans are split now into 5 different districts. 5, from 2 to 5. And that really violates a lot of, the constitutional basis on which redistricting was built, and also the Voting Rights Act. So I'm trying to figure out, and we've asked this question before, and we've flooded public comments. When I say we, African American women predominantly, and we have worked so hard to make our voices be heard, but it seems like they're falling on deaf ears. How do we continue to address this? Because Black Women for Wellness is creating a community forum that will be held on November the 4th. And we're going to be really addressing this up until then and to that moment, because, that now diminishes even our voting power to have a chance, a minute chance of having African-American leadership from 50, by 50%. So is this an error? Or was that, or is that what you guys really considered was a viable solution for redistricting for the 30 and 35th Senate districts?
So Carmen, you're sort of describing what is one of the really tough situations now, because there's so many redistricting efforts and there's so many public hearings, and they all are centered around the new census data that came out in 2020. So what you're talking about is where the California Citizens Redistricting Commission has drawn the lines. And my guidance to you is you need to just keep talking to them, because we have no authority over the state. There's another redistricting effort going on in Long Beach. There's another one going on at LAUSD. Los Angeles City is doing one. They're not an independent commission. Ours is an independent. All we have is jurisdiction is over where the 5 supervisorial district lines will be drawn. So, I hate to tell you, I can't help you with the California where the lines are, but I do know the People's Block just submitted yesterday, late afternoon, their map to be added to the hub. So if you've been part of the People's Block, and I've been talking to them going back to December about this whole process, our commission will very seriously consider your input and your needs. But I can't speak for the other commissions.
Okay, so again, your recommendation was that we continue to work with the state CRC?
Well, if your concern is about where they're drawing the assembly districts, absolutely, they control that.
Senate. We have more concern with the Senate than the Assembly.
It's the California CRC.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you for that.
Sorry, but we're only the Board of Supervisors. They have
Got it.
A lot more lines they're drawing. They're also doing the Board of Equalization. But it is, I feel for the public, because, the Los Angeles city has had a lot of attention about their city council districts. The Board of Supervisors, because we're LA County, they're LA City, we're both CRC, people get confused. So we've had people come to ours and talk about where to draw the council districts. And we're like, you got to go talk to the other one. But we are looking at just the Board of Supervisors. And there can only be 5 districts because that's what the county code mandates. Carmen, you have another question?
Yes, actually, that was me that had that posed that question about the Watts community, and that is city, of course. So, as you bring that up again, that was another issue because we'll have to go back to the city because as you tried to pull up the public comments, I know for a fact that there were at least a quarter of all of the public comments were directly pointed at the Watts movement of redistricting out of 15 into 9. However, all of the maps totally dismissed that. They had 400 and something like 440 public comments. I know at least 100 of those were from the Watts community. And so, I'm just, and that is a powerful representation of the people's voices really being heard and considered, because when we talk about contiguous, in that community, there is a 15-mile drip from the Watts community down to its neighbors in San Pedro, Wilmington, and the Los Angeles Harbor. So that would have been a powerful representation of how this redistricting process really does consider public comments, but that has been totally ignored. So we are still at that, we're still at that junction as well. So we've still got a lot of work to do on this. And I just, having been the former district director for the 37th Congressional District, I've seen this process, for a couple of years, and I know that everybody is already gearing up for lawsuits and what have you, but, that's just, it's like, anyway, thank you.
Again,
Thank you for your responses.
But that's LA City. I mean, make
Yeah.
sure they hear you. And actually, Carmen, I remember you coming to a public hearing and talking about your concern about Watts and that narrow strip of land in LA City and San Pedro. For the county, I want you to think a little bit more what would be the right geographic grouping, which is why we did those community of interest maps, because we're not tied to just the LA City boundaries. So you'll see a larger grouping. Were you there when I shared the community of interest maps?
Was I here?
This today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And I've been looking at them as well. Yes.
okay. Well, we're at 11 o'clock. If there's nothing else, I think we'll sign off at this point. I want to thank you again. And I'll just confirm. Somebody wrote, who do you work with? City districts. So the city districts, if Liz is still here, that would be the Los Angeles City Citizens Redistricting Commission. We are Los Angeles County for the Board of Supervisors. So I want to thank you very much. My email, my name is on the website. You're welcome to email me and reach out. Carmen, you have one more question. Your hand is still up. Are you good?
I am good. Thank you.
Okay.
I lowered it.
Thank you, Lester and Gabo and Carmen, for hanging in. I'll end the webinar now. Thank you. Bye-bye.